Assalamu alaikum students. Our next video is on cambium. So first of all, I'm going to define cambium. It is basically a thin layer of generative tissues lying between bark and wood of stem. So bark is when we talk about bark, we come to know that we are talking about the higher plant, and between the outer rough layer of bark and wood, these type of tissues are present, that is called cambium. Whereas it is they are active there in woody plants, means the higher plants. Cambium is responsible for production of new layers of phloem outside and xylem on the inside, and cambium is responsible for increasing the diameter of the stem. Whereas when we talk about the herbaceous or the lower plants, cambium is almost inactive, and in even the plants that are even lower than that, the monocotyledonous plants, it is usually absent. Now next, this is the structure. Let's see that this is the structure of this is wood, and cambium is present in the center. Look, this is bark. Inner to the bark is phloem, and inner to the phloem is cambium, and then xylem, and then wood. That means cambium is present between wood and bark. On outer side it produces phloem, and on inner side it produces xylem. This was the structure of cambium. Then cambium are basically of two types. One is cork cambium and the other is vascular cambium. So here I am going to explain what is cork cambium. Cork cambium is a tissue found in many vascular plants as a part of periderm. That means that cork cambium is the tissue in vascular plants. The higher plants, cork cambium is present, and it is a part of periderm. Then cork cambium is also called the lateral meristem. It is called lateral means sides. It is lateral meristem. That is why it is responsible for secondary growth. Secondary growth is basically the increase in girth of the plant, the width of the plant, that replaces the epidermis in roots and stems. स्टेम में इनिशियली प्लांट के अंदर एपिडर्मिस होती है, और जब प्लांट ग्रो करता है, सेकेंडरी ग्रोथ होती है, तो वो एपिडर्मिस को रिप्लेस कर देती है सेकेंडरी ग्रोथ, जिसके रिज़ल्ट में हमारे पास जो है वो बार्क बनती है, वुड बनती है. सो दिस इज़ इट इज़ रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर सेकेंडरी ग्रोथ और इंक्रीजिंग द girth of the plant. The next thing is that it is not found in many herbaceous and herbaceous dicot and some monocots, which usually lack secondary growth. That means that cork cambium is only present in those plants in which the secondary growth takes place, whereas when we talk about the herbaceous dicots and some other monocots, cork cambium does not exist. The function of cork cambium is to produce cork, a tough protective material. As we know that in higher plant, tough protective material is present outside the plant. So cork cambium is the responsible for the production of cork cambium. Then the synonyms of cork cambium are bark cambium or pericambium or phloem. These are also the synonyms. We can call cork cambium as bark cambium or pericambium or phloem. Now the phloem is defined as the meristematic cell layer responsible for the development of periderm. In smaller stem and on typical non-woody plants, sometimes a secondary covering called periderm is present. Now what is periderm, as we have discussed before? Periderm. So in smaller stems and on typical non-woody plants, secondary covering is present on the non-woody plant, that is periderm. Periderm forms from phloem, which serves as a lateral meristem. That means periderm is another layer that is formed from phloem. Phloem is cork cambium in some smaller stems, non-woody plant. The periderm replaces the epidermis and acts as a protective covering like epidermis. That means in higher plants the protective covering is not epidermis, but it is replaced by another protective layer, that is periderm. Now we are going to differentiate between epidermis and periderm. Now first of all, epidermis, it is made up of flat cells, often with thick outer wall, and aerial parts of the plants are often covered with the waxy cuticle. That means epidermis has another protective layer, that is cuticle. What is the function of epidermis? Protection in younger plants. For the protection in younger plants, epidermis is present. Whereas when we talk about periderm, that is a waterproof cells with thick cell walls and dead at maturity. Periderm is formed in the higher plants, and this is a hard waterproof layer that is dead. When it is mature, the cells become dead and hard, and it forms outer bark in the trees. As we know that in higher plants bark is formed, so periderm exists or replaces the epidermis in the higher plants, in the woody plants. Now this is the structure showing the cork. These are the different layers that are present outer to the plant for protection, and all these layers are called as a whole as periderm. Then periderm is basically consists of three different layers: phalloderm, phallogen, and phallum. Cells that grow inward from phallogen are termed as phalloderm. So the cells that are present inner to the phallogen are called phalloderm, and the cells that develop outward are termed as phallum or cork. Now the loosely packed mass of cells in bark of woody plant, visible on the surface of stem as raised powdery spot through which the gaseous exchange occur, is called lenticels. The initial periderm is interrupted at the points around the stem by the occurrence of lenticels. As they have lens-like appearance, so they are called lenticels. These are blister-like lenticular ruptures in the surface. The name lenticle comes from the fact that it is lens-shaped, as I have told you. Next is the second type of cambium, that is the vascular cambium. The vascular cambium is a lateral meristem in the vascular tissues of plant. That means that this type of cambium is present in the vascular tissues of plants. Vascular cambium is a source of both secondary xylem inward towards the pith and secondary phloem outward, and is located between these tissues in stem and root. So it means that vascular cambium from the vascular tissues, it is present in stem as well as in roots. And the next point is a few leaves even have vascular cambium. Vascular cambium are found in dicots and gymnosperms, but not in monocots, which usually lack secondary growth. That means that plants that usually lack secondary growth, vascular cambium is not present in them. Now vascular cambium usually consists of two types of layers: fusiform initials, these are basically the tall cells and they are axially oriented. Then the other cells are ray initials, almost isodiametric cells, smaller and round to angular in shape. Now vascular cambium initials have only primary cell walls that are never lignified. The tangential walls are thinner than the radial wall and lack primary pit fields. The radial wall, however, often have numerous orderly arrangement primary pit fields that give the walls a beaded appearance. When the cells are dormant, they have few and small vacuoles, but in active state they become highly vacuolated and a central vacuole develops.